Hi, Chief Halton here at Fire Engineering Podcasts, and we are being brought to you by Tenkata Protective Fabrics and their Made for Life podcast hosted by Stuart Perry. The Made for Life podcast unearths the work experiences of real men and women who rely on the protective clothing and equipment to get the job done. From firefighters to industrial workers to military personnel, recent episodes explore the dangers and challenges of wildland firefighting, peer counseling for first responders, and the ins and outs of turnout gear. It's the Made for Life podcast from Tenkata Fabrics. Find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And thank you for listening to Fire Engineering.
Hey everybody, welcome to Fire Engineering Talk Radio in another installment of the Professional Volunteer Fire Department, the podcast that is dedicated to our great volunteer fire service and getting all firefighters to embrace the message that developing and maintaining and portraying a professional image is the duty and responsibility of all firefighters, paid or volunteer. Tom Merrill here, so glad to have you listening in. It is Tuesday, June 8th, 2021. The warm weather is here in Buffalo, New York, where I am from, and things are opening up and a sense of normalcy is in the air as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to the upcoming summer. It's going to be a great summer. It's so nice to see the fire service trade shows and conferences and seminars opening up and people attending them again in person. And so a sense of normalcy is slowly coming over all of us. And FDIC is creeping closer as well. So excited to be going back, and I hope I can see you there. It's the week of August 2nd. It'll be August 2nd to the 7th in Indianapolis, and hopefully you'll be there. Maybe I'll even see you in my class, which is going to be Tuesday, August 3rd, when I'm doing my 4-hour professional volunteer fire department presentation. And heck, if you could attend, I'd be honored. I'm always revising it and tweaking it. I have lots of new material, got a whole new section I put in, and going to have some great discussion points talking about what it means to be a professional firefighter in a professional organization and the things we can do to contribute to earn that title, both individually as a department member and collectively as an organization. So I would love to see you in my class, or perhaps I'll see you in some of the other great classes because I'm going to be out there attending them as well, or maybe I'll see you out at night networking at the various establishments, and it's going to be a great time as always, and I am so excited to be going back to the great FDIC. I've also been doing some work for the National Volunteer Fire Council, and as you know, I always talk about what a great organization it is, and I encourage all of you to check out all the great programs and resources that are available to you that come with your membership in the National Volunteer Fire Council. A very inexpensive membership. I think it's about $18 to join, and it gives you access to all sorts of stuff. So head on over to nvfc.org, and you'll get lots of more information about how they can help you out. And they do so much for the volunteer fire service. Just a month or so ago, they finished up their annual training summit when they had a lot of great courses that were that they had virtually. They continuously air webinars covering all sorts of topics of relevance to the volunteer fire service. Matter of fact, I just finished putting a brand new one together. It's going to be airing next Tuesday for the National Volunteer Fire Council. I'd like to invite all of you to listen in. It's a quick 45-minute to an hour presentation titled Social Fitness, Skills to Improve Community Relations for the Volunteer Firefighter. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about how the public appreciates good customer service when dealing with any business, with any organization, and that includes their local volunteer fire department. And we all know performing skillfully during calls is definitely the trademark of a competent firefighter in a well-put-together fire department, but the public's going to judge us on so many other things, such as how you acted during the call, how they were treated, how they were talked to. And I'm just finishing up putting these finishing touches on this presentation, and I can tell you I'm really excited to be doing it. So inviting you to watch it. It's next Tuesday, the 15th at 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And join me to learn how to sharpen your social fitness skills and improve your department's customer service reputation. And the one thing I like to point out, in a field where many situations are out of our control, learning about how to provide good customer service and treat people the right way is directly in our own personal control. Head on over to nbfc.org for more info, and also, if nothing else, sign up, become a member, because you know what? You'll love the resources they can provide for you. Now, speaking of our great volunteer fire service, one particular area pretty much every volunteer fire company is struggling with involves getting new members to join our ranks. I really don't know of any volunteer fire department that's overflowing with members and turning people away. But that can also lead to a problem as well, because sometimes we look for quantity and maybe don't concentrate enough on quality. And do we too often simply focus on recruitment and not enough on retention when we get people to come through our door? These are some areas I wanted to cover tonight, and we haven't really talked about recruitment or retention in a while. If anybody has questions or would like to call in, I'll just throw the number out there. Feel free to give a call at 760-454-8852. Again, 760-454-8852 for any of your recruitment or maybe retention issues, questions, problems, because I got a great guest to talk about this with me tonight, and wanted to bring this up tonight because I haven't done it in a while. So joining me to talk about it is Dave Denniston. He has written extensively on this topic of not just recruiting, but also how to retain members as well. Dave has been involved in the fire and emergency services for over 30 years now. He's an active member, a past chief of the Cortlandville Fire Department in my state of New York. He's also a fire commissioner as well as a regional director for the Association of Fire Districts for the state of New York. And he's a deputy fire coordinator for the Cortland County area. He instructs for the National Volunteer Fire Council. In addition to all of that, he works for, has a paid job as Director of Risk Management for McNeil & Company Insurance. So Dave certainly is a man of many hats. And are you with me today, Dave? Are you there?
Chief, we are here.
Excellent. So glad to have you on board. And before we get into how we're going to recruit and retain members, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? How did you get involved in the fire service? What was your little fire service journey like, and what brought you to this topic of trying to recruit and retain members?
You know, that's an interesting question, because I'm a third-generation firefighter. My grandfather was a fire chief. My dad was a fire chief. So growing up as a kid, I was around the firehouse. I was in the parades, did all those things, and it was just kind of everybody assumed that I was going to be in the fire chief someday. And so, I went to college, had not joined the fire service prior to that, went to college, came home, and actually just hadn't gotten around to joining the fire department yet when my neighbors had a fire one day in the middle of the afternoon. So, I was running the family farm at that point. I saw the smoke, heard the sirens, realized my neighbor's house was on fire, and I went trucking over there. And what I saw was a group of dedicated, hardworking individuals that were trying the best that they could, but most of them were in their 60s at that point. I watched them struggle a little bit to get the ladder off the truck, to get the water supply established, to get the hose in the front door. And I just sat there thinking, man, these guys are doing a great job, but they need some help, and they need some younger folks. So that was kind of the driving point for me to finally get around to filling out my application and beginning my career in the fire service.
So your first fire that you watched, the average age was, so this age problem in the volunteer fire service isn't new then. You witnessed it back then, that the average age was up in the 60s.
I think you just called me old, but yes, that's correct. But, even way back then, I should have said they brought the horses and the steamer in and got it unhooked. No, it wasn't that bad. But it's not a current and a problem or something that's just started now. It's something that's been plaguing us for a while, and I think a lot of us kind of turn a blind eye to it. And the thing that always amazes me about the volunteer fire service is somehow we get the job done. And when you look at it and go, where else could you put out a call? Nobody has any idea what time it's coming in, what's coming in, what they're going to need, and get just the right people there to do the job. And, we've done that so successfully as a volunteer fire service for so long that we've kind of ignored some of the trends and the things that were occurring. So I don't think the problems that we have today are completely new. I think it's some things that have been going on for years and years, and we've been able to do what we do. We've got so many dedicated people and people that work so hard and probably work well beyond their means to get that job done that, we got to stop at some point and realize we need some help and we need to do some things a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure. So was it Cortlandville where your grandpa and your father served as well, or did you move around?
No, Dryden was where I grew up as a kid, in the Dryden Fire Department, and that's where they were both involved.
Is that nearby, or where's
Dryden?
Yeah,
it's neighboring county.
Gotcha. And then you joined and went through the ranks, right, up through chief of department, and even you're a fellow fire commissioner like myself, right?
Everything that I've done in the fire service, and I think it started back at that, very first call where I stood there and go, I can do better. I can help with this situation. I got into the fire service and I took my first, back then, I'll age myself a little more here, it was called the Essentials of Firemanship.
Oh, I took that too, so I'm right there with you.
38 or 39 hours, and boy, we came out of there thinking we know everything instead of the hundreds of hours that, people are going through today. But as I took that course, I watched the instructor kind of fumble through some things, and, especially in not to be demeaning, but when we got to the night on air packs, the gentleman has never worn an air pack in a fire, and he pulls it out in its plastic case, and it was an old Scott 2A, I think, at the time, and says, well, this is an air pack, this is how you turn it on, this is what the alarm does, has anybody got any questions? And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't know anything about how to use that thing, and nor does this person that's supposed to be teaching me. I think I could do better. So, I immediately started taking some educational methodology courses and, everything that I could get to become a trainer in my own organization, then became a state fire instructor with New York State. And, because it was one of those things that I thought I could do better. And as I grew up through the fire service, I'm sitting there watching my officers, and I got a ton of respect for all of them, but there were some things that I didn't quite agree with. And I said, you know what? I think I can do as good a job or better than them. And that's kind of what's pushed me to keep growing through the fire service. And, I'm right with you as you're talking about going to FDIC, and I get to talk at trade shows and conferences all across the country, and everyone that I go to, I'm sitting in every class that I can take, and people go, geez, why are you taking this class? You've taught something like this before. And I'm going, because I'm still learning. I said, the day we stop learning is the day that we get in trouble. So,
that's true.
We just got to keep pushing people. They see these qualifications there, and they go, geez, I've done that. I've done everything that I needed to do. Well, that's great. But you're going to be dealing with problems and things that were 5-10 years ago, not today. So you got to continue to educate. You got to continue to go. Every webinar chance I get, I'm jumping on webinars. I'm going to classes. I'm just trying to learn everything that I can learn because I know there's so much more to do.
Yeah, don't ever think you know it all. That always brings to mind the great picture that I have, and perhaps you've seen it, but I put it in a couple of my presentations. But let's face it, one of the most respected fire chiefs to ever wear the helmet, the late Alan Brunacini, who just everybody loved him. He was America's fire chief, and I make sure I talk about him with newer members because as time goes on, people coming into the service aren't going to be aware of who he was and the impact he had on our American fire service. But anyway, I have a great picture, and it's been shared a lot, so maybe a lot of listeners have seen it, but it's a picture from FDIC in a classroom, and there's Chief Brunacini sitting in the back of the classroom off to the side with his pen and paper taking notes. So America's fire chief, one of the most respected ever to wear the helmet, still learning and taking notes in a class, and this was probably just a year or two before he passed away. It's ongoing and never ends.
And you couldn't think of anybody any more dedicated or knowledgeable about the fire service than him. And I've still got an email that he sent me one day that says, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, Chief Brunacini is asking me what I think about something? Wait a minute.
Right.
And I learned a lot from that. I was like, here's a guy that has fathered and founded so many of the things that we do in this country in the fire service, and yet he's still asking for people with a lot less knowledge and a lot less experience than him what they think. And I thought that was pretty cool.
I think we can all learn from that. And I think every chief, every president, every commissioner, every senior member can learn from that, you can collaboratively work with others and ask questions and always still learn and get better at what you do. So, hey, I was intrigued by the series of articles you wrote for FASNY's magazine, and for our listeners, FASNY is short for the Firemen's Association of the State of New York. They do a magazine, and it's titled The Volunteer Firefighter, appropriately enough. But you did a series of articles focusing on recruitment and retention. I believe there's 4 articles or so, and you point out that first of all, how recruitment is important, but retention is often forgotten about. We're happy to get people in because we need people, and we often herd them in like cattle in a pen and then let them fend for themselves and find their way. So I wanted to spend some time talking to you about this recruitment and retention process that you wrote about. It is a process, isn't it? And it's something that really we should give some thought to. We shouldn't just bring people in and throw them to the wolves or herd them in like cattle and send them on their way. It is quite the process to put together, but if you spend some time putting an organized program together, you can start people off in the right direction, can't you?
You sure can. And, that the articles for me were an eye-opener as well. And FASNY reached out. I'd written some stuff for them in the past and said, they were looking for, an article or maybe a couple articles on recruitment and retention. What can you do for us? And I scratched my head for a minute because I really, throughout my career in the fire service, it really hadn't been a main focus of mine. It was either another chief that was responsible for that or somebody else that was in the organization. And yeah, I had participated in a few of the events and did what I could, but I never, I guess, really digested recruitment and retention and what that meant. Until a series of articles. And as I started putting pen to paper, the ideas just started flowing, and I go, well, maybe I know a little bit more about this than I give myself credit for, but, certainly not. We talked earlier about, Tiger Schmittendorf and some of the things that he's done and some of the other great folks that are out there that have done a lot on recruitment and retention. And, as I sit there and look and say, okay, well, what are they promoting? What are they talking about? What's there? And everything that I saw and heard kept going back to the recruitment and retention, but most of it talked about recruitment. And we're worried about how do we get these people in the door? How do we get some more folks there so that average age isn't 60, 65 and the first beam engine shows up on that fire? How do we continue to get these people in the door? And as I looked at that and I saw there's a lot of stuff that's been done on recruitment. And FASNY here in New York does a fair amount on it. NDFC has got a great, the Make Me a Firefighter program. There's other state organizations that I've been fortunate enough to work with that are really doing some great things on that topic of recruitment. How do we get these people excited and interested and in the door? But as I started looking at my own organization, I said, we're doing those things and we're doing the right things and we're getting the people in the door, but why aren't our numbers getting any better? Why are we still sitting here stagnant even though we've got all this fresh energy and fresh blood coming in the door? And as I started looking at it, I said, what about the retention? We call it recruitment and retention, but do we really understand what that means, what's involved? So I started, thinking about some things and ideas going, how do we keep them here? Once we've got them inside the door, what are those things that we can do and where do we go from here?
Right, because too many departments, I think, take the more is better approach. The more hands we have, the better it's going to be, which is true to a certain extent. But there's also a cost to that, as you point out in one of the articles too. You got to think about the cost of the organization for training members, giving them physicals, outfitting members. So we want to get the right members. So let's start off focusing a little bit on recruitment itself. What can we do to bring in better quality members? Some people get scared with background checks and things like that, but I don't think there's anything wrong with doing a good background check. I know we're mandated to do certain background checks for arson and possible assault-type crimes, but what would you suggest we can do to try and get a better quality candidate in the door?
I think it's the process. And the first thing that you got to do is you got to figure out how many of those members you need coming in the door. And, I see people going, we need volunteers. So you stop in the station and go, hey, how many volunteers do you need? We need all of them. Well, what's all of them? Do we really want all? And I think a lot of us got in that mindset is more is better. Geez, we're going to lose some, so if we can get more in and get ahead of this curve, then when we lose some, it's not such a big deal. And I think that's a mistaken approach. I really think we need to look at it and go, how many do we need? And then what are the skills that I'm lacking? And I go to some departments, and they're fortunately that the majority of their folks are interior qualified, full-fledged, ready to go firefighters, and that's great. And then I go to some other departments, and they've got a whole bunch of older folks, or maybe some people that have no interest or want to do interior. So they've got a whole bunch of drivers, or a whole bunch of exterior, or a whole bunch of EMS folks, which we need all of them. But I think we got to take this good look at our organization first and go, how many interior firefighters do I need jumping off that truck when we get there? How many drivers do I need to get those trucks there? How many fire police do I need to block off the intersection and make sure nobody's running over our hose out there in the street? And then how many people do I need to keep the records and, the meals and the refreshments and all those kind of things going too? So I think it's important that we don't just look at a number. Geez, if we got 65 firefighters in our department, we'll be great. Well, we need, 40 interior folks, and I need 20 exterior folks and 10 drivers and this many fire police. And so the first step is to kind of figure out what's your sweet spot? What does your organization really need to do it right? Because if you get too many people, they're just falling all over each other and fumbling around. And we've got, a lot of people don't consider the cost of paying a volunteer. It's a volunteer firefighter, Dave. It's not costing us anything. Well, yeah, it is. It's costing you training hours. It's costing you equipment. It's costing you medical, physical every year. There's a lot of costs associated with every one of those people you bring in the door. So we better make sure we've got the right. No other business would go, hey, give me more employees and we'll do a better job. In a normal 8 to 5 work environment, they're sitting there saying, I need so many of this type of person, so many of this type of person, so many of this type of person. And I think that's where we got to head with the fire service is to figure out what you need. Once you do that, then you can start to figure out what are the qualifications of these people. Not everybody that's interested in the community and wants to come help the fire department has all the qualifications that you need for everything. If you need me to help supply the refreshments and the food, you just brought on the wrong guy because I can't hardly boil water. All right? You need me to grab a hose line and go inside, I think I can do the job for you. But we need all of those people in all those different roles to do that. So by setting the qualifications, and then, a lot of times, and I've been to the interviews in my own organization where, hey, that person came in and they had a pulse and they were breathing and they got a driver's license, sign them up, let's go. And they go, oh, no, time out, hang on. What's that person really going to bring to the organization? And, part of that whole process is to make sure that person understands everything that's going to be required of them. And I've had people go, well, we're going to scare them off if we tell them everything. I go, well, then if we scare them off, they're the person we want to scare off. I said, but if we don't set the expectations right up front, hey, this is what we need from you. And by the way, you're going to take 100 and some plus hours, and you're going to go to basic firefighter, and then you're going to go to interior firefighter, and then, oh, you want to be an EMT? There's another 100 plus hours that you're going to have to give before we're even going to put you in a truck and take you to the scene. So, they need to understand up front. And I see a lot of people come in the door and they're all gung-ho because they want to get on the fire truck and they want to race down the streets, lights and sirens, and they want to, rush in and put water on the fire. And then they go, yeah, but you're not going to be able to do that for a year or two because you got to do all this training first. So, pick your candidates. Make sure you're doing the background checks. We've had some serious problems in a lot of organizations that I've been involved in. So we brought people in that, had some pretty shady backgrounds, and we didn't take the time to figure that out. And we talk about diversity and inclusion and all these kind of things. We've got to be so careful that we don't discriminate against anybody. But yet we've got to look at everybody and have a core basis of we need people that are trustworthy. We need people that are hardworking. We need people that are, going to understand what it is they want and commit the time and be able to do that. And then we also need to understand that some of their lives are going to change shortly after they get in the fire service, and they're not going to be able to do all these things that we wanted. But it's so important that up front we figure out who that right person is. We do our homework. We do the background checks. We explain to them everything that we're going to need from them, and then start them, on the path to success. Because when we don't, we're going to have more failures than successes, and then it snowballs from there.
So let me ask you, back to when you were talking about looking at what they bring to the organization and figure out what the sweet spot is and how many interior need, how many scene support members, how many drivers. Is it safe to assume, and we've talked about this on my show in the past with different guests, but in my organization is actively talking about things like this now. Are you open to the idea of the non-traditional member bringing in people that are not maybe going to be frontline firefighters? Are you open to opening up our volunteer firehouses to the non-traditional interior? Everyone's got to be, firefighter of the year type caliber to be a member of our volunteer fire service. Or are you open to letting in other types of members?
I'm absolutely open to it, and I've watched my own department kind of struggle with this in the past. We brought in a bunch of people at one point that really weren't ever going to be interior firefighters. They didn't have the drive, they didn't have the physical capabilities and all those kind of things. And some people threw their hands up going, okay, this is ridiculous. We only want people that are going to be interior firefighters. We don't want the person that only wants to run EMS calls. We don't want the person that only wants to do the fire police calls. And I watched the pendulum swing in the complete opposite direction, where now all of a sudden we got all the gung-ho interior firefighters, and we had all these other jobs that needed to be done. So who's doing them? Our interior gung-ho firefighters, and we're burning them out. When you look at what it takes to be the chief of a volunteer fire organization, you basically become the bottle washer, the cook, and everything in between. And you need some of that other support. And when I look at what I consider, some chiefs that have had some really successful runs, usually I'm looking at them and they've got somebody that's a really good president standing beside them, doing the business side of the fire department. You see too many chiefs that are trying to run both the firematic side and the business side. Now, as a chief, the personnel side is probably going to consume the majority of your time. Some people don't look at that and realize that. But if I'm trying to do the personnel, trying to do the strategy and tactics, and trying to do all the business stuff, hey, we're going to have a chicken barbecue or a pancake breakfast next week. Who's going to work? Who's going to clean up and do all these kind of things? One person cannot do all of that. So if you get some people, I've seen departments that have taken in some accountants from the area or somebody that works in the accounting offices of one of their local businesses. And they come in there and they take over the financial pieces of the fire department. How great is that if I, as a chief, don't have to worry about those things? If I got somebody that'll come in and is maybe a mechanic and they want to keep my fleet operational and do some of the vehicle maintenance checks and do all that kind of stuff, but they really have no interest of, running inside a burning building, awesome, because I got to make sure that those trucks are ready to run and get there. So, we've got to balance that out, and that goes back to that, take the deep dive of the organization to begin with and figure out what are your needs. I tell people, take a list of all your members and then write down beside their names, your current members, write down beside their names what they are best at and what they're tasked with. And a lot of times you're going to look at that list and see it's very lopsided. I'm asking my best people to do more. When somebody wants to, give a busy man something to do and you get it done, but it comes to a point where you're burning folks out and they can't do all of that. So I have no problem with the non-traditional roles. I think there's some, organizations that I've seen that have done a great job with them. Some, people that have done great in, public education. Some people have done great in the business finances, the personnel records and the record keeping and all that kind of stuff. I'm lousy at records. I understand that and I know that. So if you ask me or tell me that I've got to be in charge of the personnel files too, probably that job is not going to get done correctly.
I know one department where I was doing a presentation for them. They actually had some community members come in and volunteer to run their fund drive. So what a great idea. That took the whole fund drive component away from the active membership. These volunteers came in from the community, and they run their fund drive every year for them. And they were thrilled to have some people come in and do that for them. And to be devil's advocate, the one complaint's too harsh of a word, the one issue some people have with the non-traditional members, and this is where you got to meet halfway and maybe have a good understanding of what you said, do a needs assessment, what you need. But some people are concerned that we can't have an entire fire department of non-structural firefighters. Got to be careful that we still bring in structural firefighters, people that are going to put the fire out, and medics that are going to provide patient care on medical calls. And I get that. But there can be, I think you called it a sweet spot. You got to find that sweet spot and have some, do a good evaluation. What's the right number? But I think you can make it work. I really do.
No, I totally agree with you. And again, I think, we don't get to that point like, we did at one point where we had too many of the non-interior folks. I need those people. Hey, the purpose of this fire department is to go to fires. The purpose of this fire department is when somebody calls 911 and that pager goes off, we're going to get in those big shiny trucks and we're going to go down there and do whatever it takes to make their day a little better. So that, we can't lose the focus that that's the main thing we need to concentrate on, and that's where the majority of our members need to fit. But then there's some other roles that people can fit. And, I've seen other cases, too, where, we had a fire department auxiliary, and we had finally done away with that because we go, we're spending more on these people than they're getting, by putting meals on it and doing all those kind of things. So you can't, it's not a social club, and you don't ever want it to be, and people need to realize that. People need to understand when they come in the fire department and the fire service, it's going to be hard work. There's going to be a lot of undesirable stuff that's got to be done. But somewhere is that balance, that sweet spot, as you said.
Yeah. And another question I've had some people ask me when we talk about bringing in the right quality of member, people get concerned about doing background checks. Do you have any advice on how to properly do a background check? What can you legally do? Who can you talk to? Do you work with law enforcement? In New York, for example, we know we have to do an arson background check. Do you have anything you can offer to listeners on that? Because that is a concern some people have about, what am I allowed to do, and what's legal, what's not, and where would I cross the line?
I think that's a whole nother podcast when we start talking about that piece and what we do in so here in New York, and I know a lot of the other states as well, you got to do the arson background check, and that one's pretty clear. The law says in New York that if you got any kind of arson conviction, you can't be a volunteer firefighter in the state. That one's easy. And then all of a sudden we got the requirement that we have to do a sex offender background check. So everybody goes, oh, great. Okay, now we'll do the sex offender background check, and if they got any kind of history, then they can't be a fire department. Well, that's not what the law says. So now you start to get into this gray area where now we do the background check and we get this information and we say, okay, what do we do with it? Yeah, we now know that this person was a registered sex offender or, has had some past history there, but we can't just exclude them because of that. And, when we start talking about the background checks and what you're looking for or what you're not looking for, I think it's important that we know and we understand, what's somebody all about. We had a situation in my department where we had a gentleman come in and he applied for membership and, came in to the interview and he sat there looking and he had been involved in 9/11. He was on a truck company down in New York City and lost his whole truck company, decided to get out of the fire service, moved to upstate New York. Now he wanted to get a little bit back in the fire service, and we're all sitting here blown away going, wow, how great is this that we're going to get that expertise in part of our fire department. And thankfully, one of the people that sat in on the interview, something didn't sit right with them. And they go, I don't know what it is about this guy, but I want to know more. And he started doing research on the truck company that this gentleman told us he was from, only to find out that this guy was never a firefighter at FDNY. He'd actually been in prison in upstate New York for the previous 10 years, and I don't even know what the crime was that he committed at this point in time. Done all kinds of reading and research and everything, and he came and presented himself to us as somebody that he wasn't. And, we thankfully at that point go, oh, wait a minute, no, you're not welcome here. But had somebody not had that moment and done the research, I just think of the trouble that could have gotten us in down the road.
Yeah.
So I think that's what we need to look at those background checks, figure out what we're going to do with that information. There's a lot of stuff when you start talking about what can I legally put on an application, and I can't ask somebody their date of birth, and can I get their driver's license, which is going to tell me what their date of birth is, because then you get into discrimination and all those different things. But I think we owe it to our organizations and ourselves to come up with a defined system, to do a background check of some kind, limit the number of people that are going to see that information that comes in and decide what we're going to do with that information once we get it back. I mean, they can't stand up in front of the whole department the night that they're voting on this person and say, oh, yeah, by the way, this person filed for bankruptcy, did this, that, and blah, 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 all the way down through. So, you know, there's you want to definitely be looking at your application. You want to be talking to your local legal counsel and find, hey, I always say go to your local legal counsel because they're the ones that are going to be standing beside you in court when something goes wrong and you got to defend what you did. So have those conversations with those folks going, what can I ask? What can I ask? What information can we gather from a background check? But we certainly encourage people to find out about some of these people because they're not always what they represent themselves to be.
And like I said at the beginning, it is a process. Put together the program. You know, it's going to be a little bit of a process to put it together, but it'll pay off in the long run. And in your case, look what you dug up. So we have to protect not just our organizations, but the people we serve by doing good quality background checks. So don't just take everybody that's knocking on the door as much as we might want to. But so that when we do sit down and talk with these candidates, with someone that maybe will become a new member. You mentioned earlier when we first started talking about being honest and upfront with the requirements, and I think that's true. And one thing we joked about before the show started is I think sometimes we do a disservice with our advertisement, selling it as all glory and all hero type stuff, and you're going to be fighting a fire every day. So I think you have some merit there with what you're saying about being honest and upfront about. And be honest and upfront about all the good, too. I mean, there's the brotherhood and sisterhood alone, the second family that you become a part of. But, hey, there's probably not going to be a fire, and you're not going to be pulling the baby out of a burning bedroom every day of the week.
and probably a lot of people never in their career. So
yeah, right, exactly.
They need to understand what this job is and what the job isn't. And, yeah, there's, some of my proudest accomplishments are things that have happened on calls with the fire department and, lives that I've been able to change and property that I've been able to protect. And I couldn't be prouder of that. But when I think of the amount of those things versus the amount of automatic alarms, CO alarms, somebody, fell and scraped their knee and all those kind of things, that's the majority of what they're going to go through. And that's where we lose some people, too, is they get in there and they go, oh, this isn't all what I thought it was going to be. This is a lot of hard work. Oh, yeah, it is.
Right, for sure. So when you get the new member in, much like when you start a new job, we need to onboard them properly. And I know you've talked a little bit about that as well. And I like to tell people, think of any job you've been involved with. And that first day or those first couple days, really, you form an opinion. And I'm not just talking the fire department. I'm talking your job, whether it's just out of college or you're getting that first full-time job, wherever. Your impressions are made pretty quickly about whether it's a well-put-together and well-run organization by how they treat you, how they onboard you, how they show you the way. And we should be doing that in our firehouse too, right? That should be part of the process. We should have an onboarding program. I know in my day it was they threw gear at me, and I joke about it all the time. They just said start going to calls, but probably not a good idea today. We can make an impact, and it probably can help with retention if we onboard them correctly.
Absolutely. You've got to have a well-structured orientation program. You've got to have some people that are willing to be mentors. And that's not just officers, I tell people all the time, leaders don't necessarily have a white helmet. Look for the leaders in your department, somebody that's willing to bring somebody along, to mentor them and do all those kind of things. But you need, the orientation process here in New York is not sending them to depot. It's things that we got to talk to them and teach them about our organization first. I had a real eye-opening experience with my daughter. I was in the Chief's ranks when she joined the fire service. And one day we had a call, and, I'm getting ready to run to the call, and I can't find her around anywhere, and I don't know what's going on. I finally found her. I go, we got a fire. And she goes, oh, I didn't know. I go, well, don't you have your pager on? And she goes, I had to shut it off. I go, why did you shut it off? She says, because it's talking all the time, and it was keeping me up at night and all these kind of things. She didn't know how to set the thing to priority alert. And I'm like, wow, here's a kid that grew up in the firefighting household that didn't understand. And I go, it's not her fault. We threw the pager at her. We never took the time to explain to her, how does this thing work? How do I put it on alert? How do I do any of this kind of stuff? And it started us looking at our own programs going, we throw the gear at folks. Have we taken the time to show them how to put it on? Have we taken the time to explain to them why they need to put it on a certain way and how it protects them? So that orientation and, the first few months is where you set the tone for everything. You're already going to have a person that's a little discouraged if they can't grab the hose and run inside. But you better be doing things with them to keep them interested, to keep them excited, and start educating and training them right from the very start.
Yeah, I like to say get them involved as soon as possible, as quick as possible, as safely as possible as well. But if they're just sitting in the background, basically, the old days of be seen and not heard, and just sit there. People want to be participating. And what I heard once is, there's a lot of other stuff competing for their time, and if you don't make the most of their time quickly, if you don't engage them real quick within those, I read once you have 30 days or so to really engage them and get them going. If you don't, they may be walking out the door.
I don't get to the firehouse as much as I used to. I used to think I lived there pretty much. So, I don't get there as often as I used to. And every once in a while, we'll have taken in a new member, and I don't know who they are. Like walk in the building, I'll see somebody over there, and I go, I don't know who that person is. And, geez, they didn't even bother to come up and introduce themselves. It's not their job to introduce themselves. There's one of them and 60-some of us. It's each one of our jobs to lend the hand to reach out and say, hey, this is who I am. Who are you? Love that you're here, brother or sister. What can we do to make it better? Right.
That that is just one of the simplest things to do too. And all of us can do that. And I've seen it happen all the time with this awkwardness when there's a new member and someone's seeing them for the first time, where they won't even go up and just introduce themselves and say hi, or I believe at their first company meeting, they darn well better be asked to come, maybe stand and everyone say, this is Joe Smith or Jane Smith, welcome, and applaud for them. And after that meeting, people should be going up and welcoming. This just happened in my department. We have a new member, and after a drill a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, we have a post, like a lot of fire departments, we have a post-drill meal, which is never healthy, but it's just a tradition. We're pizza, wings, and we're in Buffalo, right? And we're sitting around, it's 9:30 at night or whatever, and here's the new member. Where's the new member sitting? By themselves at a table, right? The members all go and sit with their usual crew. Everyone's got their crew that they hang with, right? Officers are sitting together and other senior members are sitting together. Here's this new member sitting completely by themselves. So I took it upon myself, because I've been reading about this and learning as well. I didn't always do this, but I went up and pulled up a chair and sat with this new member and engaged them. Hey, welcome. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What got you involved? And and I'd like to think we can all do that more often to really make a new member feel welcome, especially if they have no history with that department, if they don't know anybody, they came in off the street, they moved to the area recently. They're timid, they're nervous, they're gun shy. They really need to be welcomed and made to feel a part of the organization right away.
Yeah, another thing that I found very helpful is, if I've got a truck check that I'm supposed to do this month, I'll reach out to one of those new members and say, hey, I'm coming down next Thursday night to do my truck check. If you'd like to join me, I'd love to have you. And, all of a sudden I can teach them some things, and they're a big help doing that check as well, but we're building a little camaraderie, we're building a little bond, and I can teach them little things as we go, and they enjoy it, and I enjoy it, and it's a really, it's a simple thing to do, but it means a lot.
And the one thing with mentoring, I've seen some informal mentoring. I've seen some senior members take it upon themselves when they're standing around in the apparatus bay for any given reason, waiting for a squad to get back from a medical call, whatever the case may be. And some senior members might be taking a newer member around and explaining things. And I've seen where officers can get upset and feel like they're treading on their territory. This mentor is trying to show them up, and that's not the case at all. They're just trying to be a good mentor, and I think as officers, they should welcome that. Welcome that. They're educating the new member, and making them feel welcome, and making them a little more astute as to maybe explaining what the role of that particular rig is that they're talking about, and nobody should get defensive about that. That should be everyone should be happy with that being done.
Not only should we not be defensive, but we should be encouraging and welcoming that to take place. And the other extreme that I've seen too is, we get some people that want to be mentors, but are the wrong person to be a mentor. So you want to kind of steer that, be watching that as well. We got some people that mean really well, but they're not the kind of person that we really ought to have showing these people the ropes and trying to bring them up through. And, we've all got the Debbie Downers and the complainers in the department as well. I need to kind of keep them away from these new folks because they can, turn somebody off in a hurry as well.
Yeah, good point there for sure. And you also mentioned as people are going through their career, not just new members, but this could be throughout their entire career, not a bad idea, and you don't hear about this often, and I was really intrigued with you writing about it because it's something that some people might dismiss right away, but you make good points about member evaluations. Can you expand on that a little bit? What do you mean by evaluating members? And, hey, I'm just a volunteer. You can't tell me how to get better or what I should be doing, and what do you say to that?
Throughout my career in the fire service and serving in a bunch of different capacities, I've ended up at that board meeting either as a fire officer, as a president of the department, as a member of the board of directors, and we're talking to this person that's not cutting it. And they've been a member for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and all of a sudden they're not coming around anymore, and they're just not an active participant in the organization. And we're trying to encourage them that maybe it's time you got out of the department before we take upon ourselves to make you get out of the department. So, as we look at that, I go, how did we get to this point? It's not like one day this person woke up and said, yeah, I'm just not going to be a participant anymore. Most of them, when we look at it, and when we start going back and looking at their call responses, we start going back and looking at their training records, we start going back and looking at their meetings, whether they're coming to the meetings or not. And as you go back through history, you watch it get stronger and stronger and stronger until they were a new member with a lot of excitement. But then it's kind of human nature for a lot of people to do the bare minimum. So the people, they stop getting up at every call. I tell people all the time, and I don't know what age I was when I realized my pager had a snooze alarm on it. It's that little squelch button, and you hit that, and you know what? If it's a real fire, it'll go off again and wake me back up. How cool was that? Because I used to be up and out the door prior to the pager even tripping. The dispatcher could just start to say Cortland, and I knew it was ours, and I was gone. I go, so where did I go from that eagerness and those kind of things to the opposite end of the spectrum? And, I think a lot of people, they didn't, and they realized at first, hey, I didn't make as many calls as I should have made this year. I just made it to the bare minimum number of trainings, and I didn't really go to anything extra. I knew exactly what I had to get my O showers and my mandates and those type of things. And you do that, and, you feel bad at first going, geez, I'm not doing everything I should do. And then you go, but nobody told me that was a problem. So next year, whether it's intentional or unintentional, you do a little less. And then the year after that, you do a little less. And then all of a sudden it gets to the point where they're calling you up going, hey, you're no longer an active member of this department. Well, what do you mean I'm no longer an active member? Nobody's said anything to me all along the way. So I think it's important, and it hasn't got to be, like an employment review that you do every year, but you should have a process. You should have a form that fills out. Right on that form. How many calls, what percentage of the calls did you make this year? What percentage of the trainings did you make this year? What percentage of the meetings did you make this year? And what extra did you do for the organization this year? Now you've got it documented. You can put it in their personnel file. But a lot of people sit there and go, man, I only made 10% of the calls this year. I thought I did better. I'm going to do better, and I'm going to try harder next year. So if you have that evaluation, it's a wake-up for a lot of people as to the things that maybe they aren't doing anymore. And then things you'd like them to do. It also shows them that you appreciate the things that they did do. But when they're getting treated the exact same way, if a person's coming to 80% of the calls and all the training and meetings and all that kind of stuff, and they're getting the same T-shirt or jacket at the end of the year as the person that made 5%, and nobody's talking to one going, you're doing a heck of a great job, and the other one, man, you really got to, kick it up a notch. We invite that to happen by not having those annual reviews.
Yeah, for sure. And, one thing, too, though, is could we scare people off if we do this evaluation? Could it come across as confrontational? do you have any suggestions on how to do a good evaluation, especially if you're doing it for the first time? If you're a new chief or a new president, or you're stepping foot, and I'm going to now do do you announce it at a meeting? We're going to do evaluations. I think you got to have a tact there, I would think, right?
I think it all depends on the tone you set and the format that you do it in. So if I bring that person in and I start yelling at them, oh, you got to do more, you got to try harder, you got to do all this kind of stuff, I don't know what's going on in that person's life. And that evaluation is another chance for me. I don't need to know everything that everybody's doing. But boy, if somebody's got a sick relative at home, or they're struggling and they had to take on another job because they can't pay the bills, or they've got a kid that's a senior in high school and they said, this is the year I'm going to start doing all their sporting events and all those kind of things, we should praise that, and we should encourage people to do that. But unless we have that two-way communication, so I understand why it is that they aren't coming around, and they understand that, hey, I'd like you to do as much as you possibly can, but I also understand that you're human and you have a life outside of here. I think it's great. So I think you got to set the tone. You got to make it not punitive. We do so many of the things we do in the fire service today is punitive based. Somebody gets in an accident and we do a review. That's a good thing. Let's figure out why this accident occurred. Let's figure out, was it systematic? Was it human error? And probably it was a little bit of everything. But if we don't ever talk about those things, then they do become uncomfortable, because the only time we're talking about them is when there's a problem. So, people, I think, can get a little skittish at first and, what do you mean you're going to evaluate me? But if you set that process up, you make it, like I said, it's just fill out a form, share it with a person. Hey, let them tell you what their concerns are as well. As an officer of this organization, I got to be ready to hear some stuff that I probably don't want to hear.
You probably don't want to hear it, right?
I'm not coming around anymore, because every time I come around, that one captain is finger in my face yelling at me all the time. You know what? I got a problem with a captain that I got to fix them. But if I never talk to those people and they stop coming around because of that, the situation's only going to get worse.
Yeah. I think you said it very well too. Is ask them, what can the department do to help you out? I think that's a great question to ask people. What can we do better to help you out in what you're going through in life? And be respectful of life changes. And one of the problems, that's hard. My department, again, we've been going through some big changes, trying to update bylaws and be different with our approach to recruitment and retention, and expanded our boundaries recently. We're trying all different things. And one of the arguments, and I respect everybody. I always say, these organizations are democracies, and boards rule, and you have to come to consensus. And I don't always win, but as long as it's done in a fair way, I'm okay with that. And one of the arguments that I hear from one of the persons that doesn't maybe want to always change is, if we give people leaves, if we try to be sympathetic to, they had a new baby and they want to take 6 months off while, they enjoy the first 6 months or 3 months, whatever it is, we'll never get them back. And my simple response is, what do we have to lose by doing it? If we don't get them back, okay, it's a bad thing. But what's the difference if we don't do it and they say, well, I'm just going to quit then? So what do we have to lose? Some of these things you have nothing to lose by trying.
When you look at the active lifespan of our members in our own organization, every one of them has gone through some point in their life where they weren't able to give as much to the fire department as they once could. But then we've watched some of those situations change, and all of a sudden they're right back. So if we're working with them, if we're considerate of those type of things, hey, I get it. People have got a life outside of here. My current job, I travel a fair amount. So I can't be at all these meetings. I can't be at all the drills. I can't be at all that kind of stuff. But people understand that, and they know when I am in town and the pager goes off, I'm probably going to be there. But if they weren't, if every time I walk in, somebody made the smart ass remark, geez, nice of you to show up, or who's the new guy, I'm probably going to stop coming around. So, you've got to understand who the crowd is, who that person is, and what can we do to work together for the greater goal of the organization.
Yeah, for sure. And you had another good point too about not just focusing on their immediate past. Take their entire career into consideration. That is such a good point. You've got people that have put their heart and soul into it, and now a new member joins, and they don't know anything about this person, and that person drops off a little bit. It's like, what's this person ever done? They don't realize their history, and again, I think that's also where strong mentorship comes in, and people to make them aware of who these people are, and don't be so quick to judge. And people go through things in life, like you said. We have to be respectful of that.
Yeah, and it's cyclical. We need to understand that. It may not be year to year. It could be season to season. It could be that my kids play on this sports team at this time of the year. I'm not going to be around for those 2 months because I'm going to be part of their life. You know what? As soon as the season's over and they won the championship, I'm going to be back there doing what I was doing before. So, we push a lot of people out the door because we give them grief for things that we really shouldn't be giving them grief for.
Right. And who can fault somebody for wanting to be at their kid's game, right? Who can fault them?
Yeah. Or if you've got an accountant in your department, you've got to know that 2 months prior to April 15th, they're probably not going to be around. And everybody's got, we got folks that work for some of the construction companies. The summer months, they're gone. They're out of state. They're working on projects and those kind of things. But during the winter months, they're here busting their butts when somebody else may be off that time of year because they enjoy skiing or doing something different.
Right, and vice versa. I know people who go to Florida for the winter. They're older, but they're quality drivers or scene support members now. Maybe they're not interior firefighters anymore. And I know departments that have dismissed them because they're not around enough during the winter. But if they were back during the summer, they could be getting your first out rigs out. It's just people. We've got to change how we're thinking and how we're doing things. And I had a line I've used, and I'll use it again. The volunteer fire service of the 70s and 80s and 90s and 50s and 60s was fantastic. Fantastic people, did so many great things, fought probably bigger and more fires than we'll ever see. But those days are gone and never coming back. It doesn't mean that the fire service of today can't be just as great, though. We just have to be willing to look at what we can do to change with time, change with the times. And
we've got to learn, we've got to adapt. And COVID kicked us all in the shins. But there's some things that we can learn out of COVID as well. And, we started doing virtual meetings. We started doing virtual training. Well, here's a case like you're talking about those folks in Florida. They can Zoom in for the meeting. They can Zoom in for the training. And, yeah, they're not physically here for the calls for those couple months, but they haven't lost sight of what we're doing as an organization. So, go to as we're bringing our meetings back, consider still having the Zoom option. Yeah, 90% of us are going to be in the room talking it out like we should be, but don't discount the other 10%. Maybe somebody doesn't have childcare at night, and they can't come because their spouse is working, and I can't make it to the meeting because I got to watch the kid. If I can get them on Zoom and they can participate in the training or they can participate in the meetings, why not do that? And then I hear the excuse, well, we stopped giving people credit for that because they weren't coming around anymore. Well, then that's a problem. I get that. You can't make it so that that's the only way they do stuff. But don't penalize a few. Penalize the ones that need to be penalized. Don't penalize everybody because a few can't handle it.
Yeah, don't be so quick to discount it, And then as members go through their career, you say, and you have a whole article about showing them that they're appreciated. And again, I think we fail at this, and I'm glad we're starting to focus on this a little bit more. Again, we don't. Yeah, we're in a hard business, right? It's a hard charging, action-filled business, and I think sometimes we have a hard time being soft, but there's the right times to be soft, and one of the simplest and best things you can do is say thank you to show people are appreciated, and that goes a long way toward retention, doesn't it?
It goes a huge way, and we need to understand in this business that we're in, the public very rarely is going to reach out to us. We've all had the extremes where we got a Christmas card or somebody brought cookies to the station or did one of those type of things. But as a whole, we're not going to get thanked for those huge things that we do in the community. So if we're not thanking our members ourselves, if every time the member comes down and we're just yelling at them, I can stay home and get yelled at. I don't need to come to the firehouse and get yelled at. And that's where a lot of people, their attitude starts to get. So we've got to make sure they understand, hey, I'm appreciated, and they enjoy what I do here. They like what I do here. one of the things I see, and we do a great job, we have our annual installation banquets, and we have a firefighter of the year and a driver of the year, and we recognize those people that really need to be recognized. And I'm in no way that everybody gets a trophy kind of guy. I'm not that kind of person at all. But sometimes we could thank a few more people than we do, because I know other times when people have sat there watching their spouse or their loved one or somebody else, at these things, when somebody else gets an award and they sit there going, yeah, but my person did all that stuff, or my person did just as much, how come that person got the award? So, again, it's not all about everybody gets a trophy, but can we do things to let people know they're appreciated? Whether it be a simple thank you, whether it be a T-shirt or a hat once a year, or whether it be some kind of recognition. Give your top 10 responders some little thing. And you know what? Next year, somebody's going to want to be one of those top 10 responders. So find ways to reach out and say thank you to folks for what they're doing.
Yeah, it's so important to appreciate your members because, it's easy not to go. It's easy to maybe stay home and if you're not having a good time and being appreciated, then you're going to think twice before going to that drill, before going to that meeting, before going to the call. So, any other ideas on what?
As these gas prices keep climbing, I think about every time I turn the ignition on in my vehicle. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and some areas do gas cards, don't they? I don't think we can do that in New York, but I know some areas are able to do things like that. What have you seen? What are some of the other enticing things departments have done?
I do caution folks, especially the folks here in New York. I think it's one of the few states that does not allow us to give certain things a certain value to our members. What it does is it jeopardizes their ability for the VFDL, the Volunteer Firefighters Benefits Law. I think as a collective fire service, if you're in a state like that, we got to start educating our legislators that, hey, we need the ability to do this kind of thing. But, we've seen the gas cards, we've seen, like I mentioned before, the jackets, and maybe we give the top 10 people jackets instead of giving every member a jacket this year. But there's little things that you can do to show that appreciation. Just make sure you understand and you're talking to your legal representation again about what is legal in this state and what's not.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll caution people. I've had this discussion, a very good point that was brought up to me once. You got to get creative, and there's a lot of ways to do it. But what I'm going to caution people about is sometimes awards can go the other way. Sometimes awards are going to, and no disrespect, these people are still going to a lot of calls, but it's going to the highway worker or municipal employee that's allowed to leave their job all day long and go to calls.
Yep.
It's going to a retiree. It's going to that student that doesn't work full time. So you just got to be careful with how you do it. You don't want to make someone seem not important by making others feel so important.
Right. No, there's a lot to that, and you can take it in the wrong direction in a hurry. So, like everything else that we do in the fire service, we got to evaluate it. We got to sit there and go, what's working, what's not working, and if it's not working, why isn't it working? If it isn't working, why does it work so well? And then try to build those things that are going well and discourage the things that aren't.
Right, absolutely, for sure. Hey, we've been going about an hour, and there is a caller that just bounced in. Do you want to see if there's a question or something we can maybe help somebody out with? Let's see if we have a. All right, it's just connected now. Hello, caller, are you there?
I am. Evening, sir.
Hey, good evening. What can we do for you this evening? Thanks for calling in. Welcome to the show. And what's your name, and what can we do for you?
Well, it's been a while, Commissioner, although I did see you last night, but I missed your show for a while here. But this is a near and dear topic to our heart, as you know, our side. So I think I appreciate your guest joining us too. I guess the thing I was thinking about, I think with recruitment and retention, we think a lot of us, to your point, like you and I both got in for, I think we got, let's say, jazz. It was something that clicked with us. But I think now, as you think about how do you keep people in, and then even how do you get people in? So we had a lot of focus recently on bringing in how do we get out there in front and get new members. So we've done really well. I think the last year has been challenging, as you guys mentioned. A lot of things for how do we figure out how to do this going forward. I think about my day job too. As we talk about, I work for a bank. I'm not a banker, but I work for a bank. So we talk about assessments and performance and how do we think about that. I think a lot of what in the volunteer fire service, we struggle with to some degree is that, like we have the mantra of, I will drag you out of a fire, but I'm afraid to kind of be candid in the conversation with you because I don't want to hurt your feelings. But I think, the assessment point to me is interesting because it's less about, or it's not at all about what are you doing wrong, but it's like, I know as someone who I'm 44, but I can turn around to, my Captain Mike and just say like, hey, like you, like this is in your family. Like this has been here, your dad may be my age and you've been doing this longer, but like there's stuff that that I don't know that maybe I'm older than you. But I think like that kind of feedback loop, I think to some degree we're kind of afraid to share that, and then I think of our current chief who served in career department for 30 years. I had a really rough call May 25th at 7:47 in the a.m. In 2019 that I still remember and probably will for the rest of my life. He was not a person that I would have ever thought would have reached out to me, but he did, and he asked me that. Like I got choked up in the department meeting thanking him for that. So I think just a lot of those things that we don't in the volunteer service, to some degree, we're, I don't know, maybe afraid to kind of show some of that vulnerability. But I found that within our department, and Commissioner, I'm sure you know this very well too, but I think that's one thing that I think we fail to recognize is that ability to have those conversations. And it's not going to be everyone. Like there's going to be guys that are just going to bust my chops on that forever, and I'm cool with that. But I think a lot of that too is just, how do we kind of use the, where do I need help? And then just be like, hey, Mike, like to be honest, guys, I have a gas-powered weed whacker downstairs that I cannot get to start. Like, and I go to the fire hall and I say that, I'm going to get busted up one side and down the other. I'm not a small engine guy. Like, I'm going to straight up there. But I know, like, those things that I don't know. So I think that's kind of like, how do we open up and just say, look, I know these things and I don't know these things. But, we all have our strengths and weaknesses and just being okay with that, And I think that's in the fire service. In the past, it's been like, to your point, like, it's been a lot of the members, I think they've done really well and have that flexibility of, they work for the town crew, so they get to do this stuff all the time. I would love to do that. I've just kind of took a different tack, but this is kind of like, my volunteer passion. I've got my daytime thing that I do well. This is really more my passion, but I can't kind of restart. So I think, how do you say, like, I really want to know this, but I don't, right? So I need to lean on you. And I think that's kind of, as we move forward, you look at these guys that, like, I can't imagine starting off now at their age where you're looking at probably having to have, maybe 2-3 jobs sometimes just to kind of get by and, and kind of function and, like, have a successful life there. And understanding that we need to support them. So
yeah, I think what you're getting to is it's all about having respect. It's all about having tact. It's all about and exactly. If you're an officer and a leader, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of your people, and obviously knowing when the proper time is for busting chops. And if somebody's coming to you, whether it's for emotional support or technical support or tool support, whatever, knowing the time to be serious and take the time to educate and work with your people. And it's called a little bit of growing up sometimes we have to do. And and
I also know in that group, like you bust my chops, it's done in a, like, I love you, man, kind of, not soft and, squishy kind of way, but, like, it's done in a safe way. Like, it's I'm going to bust your chops, but I know, like, you've got me and I've got you. And I think that's, I think we're coming around to it. I think it feels like I'm coming into this at a weird point in my life and kind of the transition, but I think it's, we're all departments, and I mentioned this before, like, I've been up in, upstate New York, and then smaller department, similar struggles. Like, it's not unique to any one area.
Right.
And I think it's, I think the landscape has shifted for us, but I also think there's a lot of opportunity here because we're seeing younger members come in. I think we just have to kind of figure out how to talk to them in the context of, like, things that they get, but it's the same stuff we're doing. It's just like, hey, this is what we do, and we're here to help you and kind of figure this out. And,
And Dave, I think you'd say, wouldn't a good suggestion be it's about continuing education too, right? If you're an officer or a leader in your hometown volunteer fire department, you train every week, and I'm sure you read and things like that, but you got to get educated. You got to find out about people, right, Dave? It comes with the territory.
the whole leadership thing is, we've grown a society of leaders that think it was all about strategy and tactics, and that's so little about what you're doing in the leadership roles. And you've got to understand, how to hold people accountable. But when you're going to have that conversation, say, what's my purpose of this conversation? Am I really reaching a hand out to this person to help them, or am I just trying to beat them down in some format? So if you're not trying to reach a hand out or, an olive branch to say, hey, how do I make this easier or better for you? But yet at the same time, I got to hold you accountable to these type of things. So, I think a lot of it is just the approach that we take. A lot of it is, getting our folks that want to be leaders in the fire service to start taking some leadership type classes. The best leaders that I've had may have been some of the worst technical firefighters that I ever knew, and vice versa. So you've got to understand what's each and every person's role in this organization. And at the end of the day, how do I take all these different personalities that I've got in here? How do I take all these different backgrounds and ethnicities and everything that makes the fire service as great as it is, and elevate that to be the best possible service that we can for our community? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about the community. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about, having a blue light or a red light card or any of that kind of stuff. It's about helping our communities, and that's why we're here. We've got to remember that.
Right. So thanks for calling in. Really appreciate it. Good points, and I think you brought up a whole nother angle there about the education part. So thank you very much.
No, thanks for the time. Appreciate it. Great show.
All right. No problem. Thank you. Thanks for calling in. You have a great night.
Thanks, you too, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, good question there, and about leadership is so important, so very important, and I want to, if it's all right with you, Dave, I have a segment on the show that I've done a couple times, and I get emails from all over from different people after a show during the month. Questions people ask me looking for advice and guidance, which I really appreciate, and I'll give my contact information out at the end if anybody has questions or has other things they want to talk about. But I put a segment together which is just basically taking a question from a listener and seeing if I can help them out. And I got one a couple months ago that was directly related to everything we're talking about here tonight, so I kind of saved it knowing I was going to be having you on the show. It's a firefighter named John. He's from a Midwestern department, and he wrote in and he says, thanks for always putting together an informative and interesting show, which thank you, John. I really appreciate that. I do, because I do put a lot of time into this, so it's nice that you appreciate that. But so John writes, I don't know if you can help me or not or give any advice, but like most departments in our area, we need members. The average age of the guys getting on the trucks is over 50. We don't have enough people to help with all the day-to-day activities, and it's gotten so bad we have some members serving in 3 different roles. I myself am the safety officer, treasurer, and also do truck checks on one of our tankers. The problem is many of our members think the problem's just going to go away, and they don't want to listen to new ideas. I brought up allowing non-firefighters to join to help out with certain activities, and that didn't go anywhere. What can I do? Help. And we talked about some of this stuff here tonight. You yourself said, we think that we always get the job done, and we think this membership issue is going to go away, and we even talked about allowing members to join serving in other roles other than structural firefighting. So what can we do to help John from the Midwest out? What would you say, Dave?
I think if John takes a lot of the stuff that we talked about tonight and take a look at the non-traditional approaches, and I just did a series of classes that was called Preparing for the Future When You're Stuck in the Past. There's so many of us that are stuck in the past, and we want to do things the way that we did it 150 years ago. And while we're still using a lot of the same techniques, we've got to do it differently. We've got to understand that the people in our community is not the same as it was 30 years ago. We live in a world now where before people used to do most of all their stuff in their own community, and then, once in a while they'd venture off to the big city to go shopping or do all those kind of stuff. We live in an environment in society today where people are not as community-based as they once were. So we need to, start looking at that and going, how do we do things differently? And, people get really nervous when you start talking about consolidation. When you start talking about, maybe a partial career combination type department and those type of things. People get, really nervous when they start saying, take a look at the bigger area. Go from your town to your county. Go from your county to your region. And say, what do we have here for assets? What are some of the things that we could utilize to do better? When we look at the fire service, and I go around to fire stations all over the country, and I'm looking at the pictures on the walls, we have a lot of pictures of all white male fire departments. Most of our communities, none of our communities are all white male communities. So when we look at that, we go, hey, are there folks in my community that we haven't reached, but we're not appealing to, and why is that? So, there's a study done recently that said women were 70% more likely to volunteer than a man was in the community. So what are we doing to reach out to females and saying, hey, we've got a lot of things. You can be part of this service, and we want you to be part of this service, and you're equal to everybody else that's here. Take a look at the different ethnic backgrounds in your community, the different religions, all of those things, and say, how do I appeal to more of these people to get them as part of my department? Because we need to understand we're competing nowadays. Back, 20, 30 years ago, I had some spare time. There wasn't a lot of things calling for that spare time. Now out there in their communities, there's all kinds of things that I can do to volunteer if I want to volunteer. It doesn't have anything to do with the fire department. The fire department for such a long period of time was the central hub of all our communities. It is no longer. So I can't continue to operate like I did 30 years ago and think that things are going to, work the same as they did then. We talked about earlier, I think we had some problems then that we just kind of ignored, and it's gotten to the point where we can't ignore them anymore. So you really need to sit down as an organization and take a look at what's your membership look like, what's it done over the last 20 years, has it grown or has it shrunk? Most of it's shrunk. What's our call volume done in that same period of time? What type of calls are we going to? So do I need to answer those alarms? Maybe we got to start looking at, having some shifts. And I'm not talking about paid shifts or any of that kind of stuff, but this group of people, you respond on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to all the automatic alarms and the CO calls and the stuff that 98% of the time we know is going to be nothing. And then you group of people, you do it for the next 3 days and start giving some people some breather, because otherwise we're just burning folks out and we're asking them to do too much, and we can't do that anymore.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is keep your mind open to different ideas and suggestions, because in so many cases, what do you have to lose by trying, right?
What we have to lose by not trying is that we're going to continue to watch the fire service that we all know and love. I think the volunteer fire service is the background of this country, but it's not what it was even when I started 30 years ago. And if we don't start making some changes and we don't start having some pretty tough conversations, I'm worried about what the next 30 years looks like.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned that I had in my notes, too, that I neglected to bring up, which I'm so glad you did, is we are competing with a lot of other agencies out. We're competing with the PTA. We're competing with the SCPA. I mean, we're competing with a lot of different organizations. And that's where social media, used the right way, can help. Yep. You can really brand your organization in a positive way to show that, hey, here's a great organization that needs volunteers, and we provide such a professional service.
That's a whole other podcast for us, partner.
It is. We'll save it. We'll stop right there. But just a great topic. I mean, we're already an hour and 20 minutes in, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on board. And for John, our friend that reached out to us, what you could start with your members is, how about airing this podcast on a drill or training night? How about somehow getting the members that maybe aren't open to new ideas to listening to what Dave had to say here tonight, and at least considering some of the points we made, because you got to start somewhere. So,
absolutely. And if we can help you with any of that process, reach out to us. We've seen things that have worked, and I've seen a lot more things fail than I have seen work. And I try to learn from those things that fail, going, man, maybe we don't need to go down this road again. But what can we do? And it's use ideas from other folks and network. That's what it's all about.
And folks, as I said at the very beginning, it is a process. So evaluate what's needed in your area. You know, as Dave said, you maybe don't need 60, 75 interior structural firefighters. How many do you need? What types of members do you need? What types of jobs do you have that need to be done? What qualifications are needed? What will they bring? What will somebody bring to your organization if they're interested? And if they are showing interest, be honest with them. Tell them what's expected. Outline what the training requirements are, what your meeting requirements are. Tell them what is going to be going on in your organization, and don't just be completely honest with them. Make sure you're conducting thorough but legal background checks. Remember, mentors are extremely important when people come through your doors, not just officers. Good quality members can be a good mentor. Put together a really good onboarding process. Don't just throw equipment at someone and say, start going to calls. Think of a job you've been at and how they brought you on board. The better quality onboarding process, the better impression you're making on that new member. Get them involved quickly. There's a lot of stuff competing for their time. Make it fun and interesting for them. Get them involved quickly. Make sure you're introducing yourself to these new members, being friendly and upfront with them. Make sure your department's getting to know them. Evaluate them throughout their career. Don't just concentrate on the negatives. Concentrate on the positives as well, and show them that they are appreciated. And if we do these things, we can help slow the bleed, I would say, Dave.
I think you're absolutely correct. We've got to take a look at what's going on and do what we can do differently.
Right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm intrigued by the other presentation that I've heard about and read a little bit about. What is it? Preparing for the future while stuck in the
preparing
past.
For the future when you're stuck in the past. Yep.
And that sounds like a great podcast for the future. So I'm stand by for that one. All right.
You know where to find me, my friend.
I do. Listen, if anyone wanted to reach out to you, anyone had questions, wanted to carry on the conversation, if our John here from the Midwest Department or our caller here tonight, which I didn't even get his name, but if he wanted to reach out to you and continue the conversation, what is the best way to get a hold of Dave Denniston?
You know, cell phone always works. I carry it with me 24/7. If I'm involved in something, obviously I'm going to have to call you back. But 607-423-1636. 607-423-1636.
All right. Well, very good. Thank you so much for an enlightening conversation tonight. And, we will talk in the future. And I look forward to seeing you. We both present for the National Volunteer Fire Council. And look forward to talking to you and maybe seeing you at some conferences down the road and carrying on the conversation.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
All right, Dave. Thank you so much. All right. That was Dave Denniston. Just a lot of great advice on onboarding new members, recruiting new members, bringing them into our organizations, and also retaining them. So thanks for listening in tonight. I'd also like to thank our sponsor that Chief Halton introduced earlier, Tenkata Protective Fabrics. Appreciate them sponsoring these podcasts. Thanks to Chief Halton and Clarion Events for supporting these podcasts as well. Not just mine, but there's so many other great fire engineering podcasts that cover so many topics within this great fire service of ours. So thank you for all of their support. And if anyone would like to reach out to me to carry on the conversation or have questions or suggestions for future shows, anything at all, my personal email is tamerrill63@AOL.com. Again, tamerrill63@AOL.com, and I'd be happy to hear from you and correspond with you. So you can also check out any of my social media platforms. Give my professional volunteer fire department page on Facebook a like. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and continuously posting informational articles and motivational words of wisdom and all sorts of different quotes to help us navigate through our volunteer fire service world. So please check them out. Subscribe also to my YouTube channel where I put all my podcasts. I have more material coming for that as well. Love to hear from any of you, so feel free to reach out to me on any of those platforms. And again, my email, tamerrill63@AOL.com. Folks, I will be back with you on July 13th. in the dog days of summer, which will be just before the great FDIC conference, which I will be on the air during FDIC as well. So I look forward to all of those engagements and talking about our great volunteer fire service with great guests and bringing up topics and events that are so important to all of us. So thanks for tuning in, and wherever you happen to be listening, please stay safe, and remember, our residents are owed professional service delivered by professional firefighters representing a professional organization. It's that simple, folks, no matter who you are, no matter who you serve. Thank you for listening in. You take care, and God bless.